We are in the Women History Forgot miniseries at the moment, where I sneak in big words while also sharing stories of some women you probably didn't or won't learn about in school. Today, I want to talk about the medieval warrior queen, Aethelflaed. She leaped onto my radar in The Last Kingdom, an amazing show on Netflix. It's very violent, so wait until you're 18 to watch it or ask your parents. But it's the first time medieval history has really been fun for me. It's about the so-called Vikings. I'm really not an expert in this area of history, but apparently they weren't called Vikings. They would go Viking. So to call people Vikings is, I guess, incorrect, but everyone does it, so I'm going to too. But anyway, this show is about when the people who many of us think of as Vikings came over to England and all of the craziness as these two cultures fought and merged. Anyway, by the second season, there's a girl whose storyline becomes central to the show. She's the daughter of Alfred the Great, and it's hard to tell too much of her story without giving a lot of the show away. But suffice it to say that later in life, she really picked up where her father left off and did a lot to build modern-day England. And yet Alfred is Alfred the Great, and Aethelflaed is who? The BBC did a wonderful article about all of this. I'm going to read you some pull quotes from it because they summarized all of this brilliantly. It's called Aethelflaed, the warrior queen who broke the glass ceiling. It begins, how does a ruler defeat bloodthirsty invaders, secure a kingdom, and lay the foundations for England, and then almost get written out of history? By being a woman, that's how. Exactly 1100 years after her death, Aethelflaed, Lady of the Mercians, is emerging from the shadows. Born into a tooth-and-nail war for survival against Viking invaders, Aethelflaed, daughter of Alfred the Great, grew up in a realm teetering on the brink of disaster. End quote. And then it talks about how she was married at 16 to the Lord of the Mercians. Mercia was a region of England that was really on the front lines of the battle against the Danes. And when her dad died, when Alfred died, all HE double hockey sticks broke loose. The Vikings, as the BBC calls them, interestingly, knew this was their time to strike. Aethelflaed and her brother Edward, who's now king, banded together to fight them off, eventually actually counterattacking. But as this BBC article continues, it's not like she was inherently bloodthirsty. Dr. Downham from the University of Liverpool is quoted saying, she does not strike me as a belligerent leader. One of her skills seems to have been as a negotiator, ... She negotiated with Vikings, and they don't strike me as the easiest people to sit around a table with, end quote. So she embraced peace when she could, fought when it wasn't happening, and when her husband died, she assumed full control of Mercia, their region of England. It wouldn't really make sense to call her queen because her brother was king and trying to fulfill Alfred's dream of united England with one king. But she was Queen of Mercia for all intents and purposes, accomplishing more during her life than anyone thought possible. She very quickly secured strategic towns, roadways, river passages, tackling Viking strongholds one by one until they eventually started surrendering to her without a fight. She never remarried. In fact, she swore an oath of celibacy after her husband died. Unlike Sarah Josepha from the last episode, I don't really think it's because she was so devastated and was in mourning for the rest of her life. Historians tend to think that Aethelflaed's motivation was a bit more cynical. If she'd remarried, she'd no longer be ruler of Mercia. Her husband would take all the power. And her quotes from the time back this up. When asked about her vow of celibacy, Aethelflaed said, it is unbecoming for the daughter of a king to give way to delight which could then produce such painful results, end quote. So translation, yeah, being married's nice, but childbirth and having all your power taken away aren't. Aethelflaed had a huge comeback in England in the last couple years. In 2018, to mark the 1100th anniversary of her death, they literally did this huge reenactment of her funeral in Gloucester, spelled like Gloucester if you're American. And there was this live girl lying on a funeral bed that they carried through the town. If you're a Vocabbett member, I'm showing you pictures. It's kind of crazy. But yeah, Aethelflaed, after 1100 years, is really having a comeback, partially thanks to The Last Kingdom, I think. Warrior lady, shrewd negotiator, clever speaker. She's great. All right, I'll see you guys next week for more. I haven't written those episodes yet, but I'm pretty sure there will be pirates involved. I'll see you then.